Got a nice snowy hike today. Rattlesnake Gulch Trail. Definitely thanking my friend Coral for leaving me her spikes. Otherwise, this would be very difficult. This is pretty neat.
Oh, you're recording? I was gonna take a selfie.
So we were hiking up the Wasatch Mountain Range, or at least that's what we're gonna go see at the top. We're in Mill Creek Canyon, Amy says. Apparently they do this hike a couple times a month, and Cliff is going crazy in the snow. He loves it. So I'll show you some of the trail along the way. It's got these nice trees kind of making a canopy with some snow on it. It looks pretty. Face plant. Oh my gosh. But yeah. And then I'll talk to you when we get to the top. Nice.
You're nuts. All the way to the point and then back.
All right, so here's kind of the fork in the road. We are gonna do the pipeline, which is a mile that way. And if we went that way, that would be the peak, kind of right behind the trees there. We think, and it's pretty straight up. I'm not ready for that. So right down there is the parking lot and the road we came in on. And this is our view right now. Absolutely gorgeous.
Wait till you see this view. Wow, man, that's awesome. Come here.
Absolutely beautiful.
Please. Stay.
Look at this. And Cliff.
Stay.
And here's our little seating. Yeah. Cliff's having the best time. All right. Cheers.
Hi, buddy.
Aw, look at Cliff.
Okay, no more. Woo! Cheers.
So, we made it to our destination. And I figure while we sit up here and enjoy our beers and take in the view, I could do a little recap of Outsiders and kind of the talks that I sat through and what I took away. So got my notes, and yeah, we'll run through that. So Scott Kelby was the first speaker. He is a online educator with Kelby 1. Him and a bunch of other people go ahead and teach on Lightroom, Photoshop, different styles of photography, and they have a podcast. And yeah, so he's a wealth of knowledge, very fun presenter, super funny. So it was a good way to start the conference. He spoke on his top 10 places to travel, and he touched on kind of the places to stay, how expensive it was, and what food he likes, things of that nature, and why he recommends it. So kind of what I took away from him was there's beautiful places everywhere, and you don't have to spend a exorbitant amount of money to get to some of these places and see some of the beauties of the world. So really look around your own backyard, within your own country, and yeah, see what you can find and find the beauty there. So that was the first one. So our second speaker was Lisa Langell. This is the first time that I saw her, first time that I really found out about her, and her talk was how to ignite your creativity, which I really enjoyed. It was like an amazing talk to start the conference, really get those creative juices flowing. And one takeaway from her was to try something new. So she was talking about abstracts and looking for the textures and things. And one of the experiments that she told us about to try out was to go to a Goodwill and just with your cell phone walk around, look at the different things in the store, and look for different patterns, different textures, and try and create some abstract images that way. And you can even take these images back home to Photoshop or Lightroom and play with the different colors and really kind of get something interesting and unique. And this will teach you to spot the details within the scene when you're out and about. So I really liked that. So our third speaker for the first day was Josh Cripps. I've followed Josh for quite a while on Instagram. I've watched a couple of his courses online. Super great guy. Breaks down some very complex ideas into very simple terms. So I really enjoy the way he presents as well. And typically what he does is he'll break down into steps, or he'll do like 7 different tips and tricks. So he gave a speech on why you're not getting better as a photographer, and why you're not getting your dream photo. And so that was 6 different tips that he gave, which were, everything from know your gear, all the way to really honing in on your why. So why are you taking a photograph? Why are you sharing these photographs? Why do you even want to be a photographer? And once you know that why, it'll really show through your photos, and people will start to really grasp it that way. So that really spoke to me, and I definitely need to do a little soul searching on my why here in the next few days. So appreciate that, and I hope you guys take away a little bit of that too. Our fourth speaker, this was the first of the concurrent sessions. So I went and saw Ryan Smith, and his presentation was the print sales masterclass, which I was really looking forward to. If you don't know Ryan Smith, he does a lot of art shows in the Utah area, and has a few galleries and things of that nature, and really is just at the top of the game in print sales and large prints. So it was really a treat to learn from him. And one of the takeaways I had from his session was to stop talking down about yourself and to really kind of talk about your art and about your photography. So one of the takeaways from his session that I had was to stop talking down on yourself and stop talking down on your art, and really speak with confidence, and to really bring that into the conversation when you're trying to make a sale. Nobody wants to buy from somebody that says, "Oh, I dabble," or "Oh yeah, I'm not in it for the money. I'm just doing this for fun." Really, that just kind of takes away a little bit, and it doesn't make somebody want to buy, your art. or hang it on your wall. Yeah, you might get a few sales, but it's probably only going to be your friends and family at that point. So if you want to take it to the next level, definitely speak with confidence. The next speaker was Ian Plant. This is another person that I personally didn't really know going in, but I am super ecstatic that I now know his work because it's phenomenal. He's got some wildlife photos that are, shot at like a 12 millimeter or 14 millimeter and super close in really unique images. So that was really cool. And then, his landscapes are awesome as well. So really inspired by his work. But his talk was visual techniques for creating stunning nature imagery. So he broke down, one takeaway was he broke down his photos into different shapes. And think about your third grade geometry, right? So we're talking circles, squares, triangles, and really trying to take the complex scene that you're viewing and break it down into these shapes, and then try and fit those shapes into the picture as if it were a puzzle, and really try to make them all work together. So that was a fun one. Definitely need to go back and rewatch that and see what else I can grab from it. All right, so that wrapped up day one. Day two, we started off with another photographer that I really look up to. You all might know him, Royce Bair. So he started nightscapers. So on Instagram, like 500,000 followers, on Facebook, a bunch of followers, and he shares people's night photography, and he has incredible work too, and he shares so much information that it's you could tell that he's just passionate about the night sky and night photography and just teaching in general. So an amazing person. Something that I personally took away from his talk was how to read the histogram. So he spoke about, when you're taking a night photo, turn on that histogram, and really for a good photo, you want to make sure that you're not clipping all the way into the black, so your histogram's not all the way to the left, and try and get it, instead of getting that perfect middle or hump that we all talk about, try and at least get it in between the midpoint and the blacks, to where you're not clipping anything, and it's about a third of the way through the histogram is where that hump is. So that's something that I didn't really think about, and now that I know it, I will definitely utilize it in every single one of my night photos. All right, so then after Royce, we had Julieanne Kost. She is a Adobe evangelist, so she is super technically skilled and knows everything about Lightroom and Photoshop and things of that nature. But her speech was all about creating personal projects, which I really liked. So I personally am going to use what I learned in Lisa's presentation and Julieanne's presentation and merge them and try and do some personal projects around abstract and trying to create the details in nature. So when you're trying to come up with these personal projects, Julieanne's advice was to define the scope of the project, how many images, really create that scope, so that you know exactly what you're trying to put into this project. To limit the time. Don't give yourself until you die. Try and limit yourself to a year, a month, a week, whatever it might be, one trip, right? And then to commit. So what is going to be the outcome of this project. Maybe it's a personal book, a coffee table book. Maybe it's a one-page website. It doesn't really matter what it's going to be. Just commit to something. Maybe it's a gallery opening. And once you have that committed to other people to hold you accountable, and now you have to go do it. So really, really liked that advice. All right, so the next one for the second day was Jeffrey Wu. Again, somebody that I really didn't know going into the Outsiders Conference, but now that I do, I'm gonna look for his work everywhere. He spends about 10 months every year in South Africa, I believe, photographing cheetahs and cheetahs hunting. Incredible photos. And he's been at it for, probably a decade or more now. So really knows his stuff, has had some amazing opportunities. But his presentation, his speech was all about the evolution of wildlife photography in a digital era. So he kind of touched on, how things are changing and how we can stand out with our wildlife photography. And one of the takeaways was you need to put out the kind of work that that really is top notch, right? You don't want to just put out birds on a stick. Make sure that the bird is doing something. Make sure it has maybe an animal or insect in its mouth. Maybe it's got some chicks there that it's feeding or something of that nature. And look for those dramatic moments. So that was my takeaway. All right, and then next we had another concurrent session. So I chose to go to David Swindler. So he was talking again about wildlife techniques. And so he's got some amazing shots as well. Him and Jeffrey Wu kind of touched on some similar ideas. But that's okay, because it really just drove those home. So one thing that I took away from David's talk was to try experimenting a little bit. Try some silhouettes, try to expose for the highlights, right? Do that bright and airy look. Try slowing down your shutter and panning, and really just stop trying to get the same shot over and over and over again. And so that is something that I personally am going to try and do more of. I know when I'm out shooting, birds in Florida, I tend to get some of the same, birds on a stick, as Jeffrey Wu said, images. And those are great portraits, technically sound portraits, but they're sometimes boring, and there's not more, there's not dramatic, anything dramatic going and happening there. So you want your wildlife images to tell a story. You want them to evoke emotion, and that was another takeaway. When you are shooting in color, you're telling more of that story. When you switch to black and white, you're evoking a lot more of that emotion. So that's another thing that I'm going to take away and implement into my photography from David's session. All right, and then we had a second concurrent session, and this was my second time going and listening to Josh Cripps during this conference. And in this session, he talked about 7 secrets for outstanding telephoto landscapes, which is something that I'm getting more into, utilizing that longer lens to pick out the details. So I was really, really excited to go and listen to him on this one. And some of the key points that I took away from him were, when you are shooting with a wide angle, it's all about that establishing shot. But when you're shooting with a telephoto, picking out the details, you're really telling the story of that environment, of that scene. And so that's kind of what you need to think about. What are those interesting points, and how can you emphasize them with the telephoto? Another thing was to get more depth with layers. So think about how to layer your image, because when you're shooting with a telephoto, you're only getting so much of the scene, right? It's such a smaller viewpoint than a wide angle that most landscape photographers are used to. So you really need to train your brain to see those detailed shots and those layers. But once you do, you can't unsee them. So I really enjoyed that one as well. And then to finish off the second day, we had Keith Ladzinski, just an amazing adventure photographer, Nat Geo explorer. So just listening to his kind of rehashing of some of the excursions that he's been on, where it was just so inspiring. And something that I took away was you need to have more type 2 fun in your life. So you need to go out, do the hard things, but those hard things will in turn give you these opportunities for amazing photographs. And then go do things that you might be a little more uncomfortable doing, such as swimming with alligators in the Everglades, in maybe parachute skiing in the Arctic, things like that, where you might not have that desire up front, but once you're in it, it's an amazing experience. And then looking back on it, you could tell like all of the emotions and excitement that he had for it. And then something else that I took away was just to look around your community, find a story, find something that you're passionate about. Maybe it's an environmental movement or something of that nature, and try to document that. And try to bring that to life. And that's kind of how he got started. That's how he recommends others get started, getting their foot in the door. So it was just incredible opportunity to listen to him speak. All right, so that brings us to day 3. So the first speaker of day 3 was Mezeul II. He is a storm chaser. Again, somebody that I didn't know going in, but really happy that I know now, because his work is incredible. So he kind of touched on, as he's out and about driving through these rural back roads, if you see something interesting, a barn, a old beat up truck in the middle of a field, anything, snap a picture with your cell phone and make sure that your geolocation is on, so that when you have a storm, you can go back out and utilize that in your photograph as the foreground. Otherwise, with storms, beggars can't really be choosers, so you kind of have to make do with the environment that you're given. And when you are out, make sure you have an escape route, a road. Make sure you have 2 roads or access points to where if the storm takes a turn for the worse, you have a way to get out, and you won't be stuck there, praying for your life, as he has a few times. He was talking about this hailstorm that he was stuck in, where the winds picked up and started whipping this hail and blew out every single one of his car windows. So I'm sure that was an incredibly scary time for him. And I know I definitely would be probably shaking in that same environment. So have an escape route, and then snap pictures with your cell phone to geolocate them. So next we had Patricia Davidson, another new photographer to me. Her talk was creating an impact in your color landscapes. So she talked about a bunch of different tips on how to get a better image. Things like utilizing leading lines, backlighting and sun stars, eliminating distractions, looking for patterns in nature. And then she also touched on, you know, utilizing that light and shadow and bringing in drama into the image that way. She also, you know, challenged us to switch up our eye. So if we shoot in landscape all the time, switch to vertical portrait mode and try and find an image that way. Or if we're used to shooting with a wide angle, switch to a telephoto and try to find images that way. Simply by doing that, you'll start to notice different things about the scene and come up with new, unique images. And then lastly, we ended with John Weatherby. He's somebody that I've followed for a while. So when I first moved to Tampa, Florida, looking at other photographers in the area, John was one of the first people that came onto my radar. And at that time, I think he had like 30,000 followers, somewhere around there. And now he's got 230 plus thousand followers. So he really knows what he's talking about. And his talk was all about building and engaging following on social media. So he gave out a bunch of tips and tricks, a bunch of insights that he has had over the years on social media. And, you know, so some of the key points that I took away was to, let's see. So some of the key points that I took away were to have intent behind your social media. So if you get more personal on your posts, you know, really bring in your personality into things. People want to follow people. They don't want to follow brands or these big corporations. They want to follow individuals. So bring your story, your experiences into that social media post, into your stories, reels, TikToks, whatever you're using now. Make sure you're adding some personal touches to it. And then along with that, just make sure you're not only highlighting the wins in your life. So, you know, maybe you got at a gallery opening, or you sold a print, or, you know, you've got, you did a hike in this amazing remote location and you got the photograph of your life. Make sure you're sharing all of that, but also get vulnerable and share the downsides. You know, maybe you're struggling with mental health or a death in the family or something like that. You know, try and bring that side in, that vulnerability in, and people will connect with that as well. And that will help you in your social media and really find your tribe. And then the other piece, and I know Gary Vee calls this the $1.80 rule. So when you're engaging, make sure you try to find you know, people that are in your same niche, and make sure you're commenting, you're liking, you're engaging with those people. And so that's another way to build your own tribe and have a lasting impact on social media. All right, and there we have it. That was my outsider's experience, some of the takeaways that I had. There were several other speakers that were in those concurrent sessions that I didn't get to listen to. So I'm gonna definitely go back and watch those recordings and try to pick out some learnings from them, because all of the speakers, everybody that I met there, just amazing people, amazing photographers, and really inspirational. But for now, you know, I'm gonna enjoy this view a little more, enjoy the rest of my beer, and hike back down. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.